Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. As you can see, we're on to my third legendary advanced guide. This one's all on Caustic, and you know what? Since I've been maining Caustic for pretty much a month now, I found him to be such a brilliant character once you know all his tricks. But we're going to be going into everything on him today, from his very basics all the way up to his very advanced stuff, because there's a lot of people in the comments that say advanced tutorials and guides should only be advanced stuff, and personally I kind of disagree. I think a lot of people that watch these videos might not know many basics that they need to know in order to do the advanced things. So we're covering everything. I hope you do enjoy it. If you do, hit like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell especially. But other than that, let's get straight into this speedrun 31 tips. Now, tip 1, these are thick boys. A couple little tips quickly. Round corners, you are going to get shot very easily. You're much wider than the average legend. Now, tip 2, caustics should always prioritize other caustics in like squad fights, things like that. A lot of times caustics, well, all the time, caustics don't get affected by your traps or vice versa, so they can take you down and your team really easily. So you as a caustic should prioritize other caustics. Getting on to the passive now, he actually has two with one of the recent update, which is Fortified and being able to see enemies through smoke. This is pretty much like a permanent thermal. As long as they're with any of your smoke, it's instantaneous. And the Fortified passive decreases damage you take by 10%, so it almost makes you a mini tank. Now, moving on to his actual ability, the Nox Gas Traps. They start at 4 damage and increase +1 damage every second up to 10. So every time it does a tick, it's like 4, 5, 6, 7, bloody blah. Other traps that are in there, say you've got like 4 traps all going off at once, they'll only stack +1 damage per extra trap on the original trap that's doing the 4 to 10 damage. Now, the recharge on these is 25 seconds per trap, but they can be stacked in a total amount of 3, and they last for a duration of 12.5 seconds, and you can only have a maximum of 6 on the map at once. But moving on, how you can use these in various different ways is make sure you track enemies. In this fight here, I know that 2 enemies are on the left because my gas was tagging them, so I know I can push that lifeline without worry of getting third-partied by her teammates. Now, you can also track them like here to see when they're going to come round corners, things like that, where they are on the other side of walls. And this is going to make sure you focus on your trap placement. Sorry about this clip, it's a little bit laggy, but it was a prime example of a wide area where in the middle of a battle I placed a triangle formation and it made a circle that's wider than even the Nox gas can make, and pretty much all of them got caught in it. My teammates were able to help and I managed to pick them all off. Now, make sure when you're actually placing them, say you're hoping to just get people that may be following you or whatever, be smart about your placement. Don't just chuck them in the middle of the path. Place them behind a tree or behind a rock. If you try and place them directly under something, it doesn't actually work. As you can see here, every single trap gets set off because they can't see it. But when they go past that forklift one, the trap I hid underneath, it doesn't properly work because it's too surrounded and it doesn't activate. So just be mindful of that. They do need like open air kind of access around it, so it's like the sensitivity goes off. But tip number 5 is hide inside traps. This is especially good for like healing. Say you're getting surrounded, things like that. But I use this a lot all the time. Say you've just finished off a squad, you want to quickly pop a heal, just hide inside one of your tanks in case there's a third party that suddenly comes along and absolutely nails you. There's so many times people don't see you because they just assume it's a trap and they just ignore it. But not only do they ignore it, they're actually put off by it. They like run away from it because it's suddenly being activated, and that actually makes you be a little ninja at times because they don't even realize you're inside the trap, and that can give you a few seconds to really sort yourself out. On the same note, you can use these as like a gas trap wall. This is one of the main things I think all caustics will start using. If you main a caustic, you will do this very frequently. You can literally just poke behind them. If you're inside the trap, it doesn't actually become physical until you get out, so bullets will go through it. So once you stand behind it, you can use it to block bullets and use it as a shield. I can't tell you how many times using gas traps as walls has saved my life. Even if it's just one, and you've got it round the corner, like here, I'm taking on a full squad, my team have gone down, and I've just got this one trap to hide behind, but there's nowhere else to hide. It's a very open area. I'm stuck underneath here. So in those situations, place a few gas traps, like not to damage your opponents, but to help you out. In long corridors here, where you can't like hide behind a wall, hide behind your gas trap, just pop in and out whenever you need to. It's so efficient. But that's going to bring us on to tip number 7, kills from the grave. If you think you're about to die, don't try and save yourself if you know you're going down. Just chuck traps and everything anywhere. You never know when they could help your teammate clutch up. Tip number 8 is landing trap delay. You'll probably know this one, but I just want to make a point on it, is when you're landing in very high populated areas, quickly just place a few traps down, and that'll delay people from looting themselves. It will slow them down while you can get forward and have plenty of time to loot up, and a lot of times you'll be left with people that just don't have any guns or are just too afraid to push because you've managed to get all the decent loot. Tip number 9 is locking mechanical doors. You know you can like block normal doorways, right? And you can actually lock mechanical doors by placing a gas can half inside it and then opening the door as the gas can is expanding. Now, I don't technically think this is an exploit because it's kind of like logical, like gas cans blocking the door. Plus, as you saw there, it can be easily countered by people shooting it through the door to activate the gas canister, make it run out, and then the door will open. And that actually moves us on to tip number 10. I've tried to do this in kind of a smooth tip flow where they all link. Is locking down main buildings. Most people think like to lock down like smaller buildings, but you can do this with some of the bigger buildings. Like most buildings on the map can be locked down by a caustic because you can put down up to 6 traps. If there's a double door, just place the trap in the middle to block it with 1. In this situation, I got absolutely surprised by this Pathfinder, but quickly locking down that building has managed to block that Pathfinder out and give me time to heal up. Tip number 11 is blocking doors and run. The big thing about being a caustic is you're a big guy. You don't have an ability that can make you move faster in any way, like a grapple or anything like that. So the strongest way for caustics to get away from a bad situation is quickly just block a doorway so that they can't just chase you down. They have to take a completely different route. And that's going to help you in so many situations. Like here, I've got this whole caustic, like 2 battles going on, and I just run through, place a few traps, place the actual ult over the dead bodies so that I have time to pick them up, and then run away, block some doors if I need to, but I can't hear anyone, so I'm good to go. But yeah, it's going to be very useful. A lot of caustics don't think they can revive people because obviously they're slow, but you can. Now, tip number 12 is separating enemies. Caustic is one of my favorites for controlling fights, especially, obviously, in enclosed areas. But situations like this, you can literally separate the entire enemy so that you can end up fighting, say you are solo, for example, both your teammates have gone down. You can fight an entire squad, 1 member at a time. Something I love to do in these double houses is I always go in and lock the 2 doors at the bottom, because what happens is the team that are upstairs either try and rush down or they jump out the doors. And if they jump out the doors, they're then trapped outside, and the people that are inside are separated. And same with the supply ship. There's only really 2 ways to get down to the lower deck. So what you can do is block off 1 doorway to the left, just fight the squads that fall down the hole, and then finish them off when they come in. As you can see here, we're getting third-partied from pretty much everywhere. We've got 1 person at either end of this hallway. We had 1 person come inside, quickly finish the one inside, and separate both sides of this hallway with my gas cans so that I can fight every member of the squad individually, and that way, like, it's basically the best way I find to control the fights and to avoid third parties, like say you're either side a bunker. Now, tip number 13, once in, lock them in. Everyone knows about the caustic gas trapping people inside, and this is insanely useful. Obviously, I had to include this in a caustic advanced guide, but it is incredibly useful. One of the little tips on top of this I would add is to activate the gas traps yourself. Sometimes they are a little bit away and they can just shoot out the trap before it's activated, so shoot the actual core body of the trap to activate it so that there is that time that they can't like just run away. And as you can see here, like, just trap them in, activate, and that gas is still going to hit them through the door, which is one of the best things. Like, I know it can be a bit annoying for teammates. I hope they update that one day where teammates aren't affected by caustic gas traps, because it is very annoying and you do have to be mindful of that. But as you can see here, like, even with different buildings, it's very easy to lock people in. Just try to think on the spot. If you suddenly got a team in one of these, like there's only 2, maybe 3 exits, you can lock them in, control the fight. Right here, we've landed at market, and you got these 4 main looting rooms that people run to. Someone ran in here before me, so I just locked him in, went and got some weapons, came back, controlled the situation. Really simple, controlling the fights with these gas cans. Here, gas trap push, tip number 14. What you can do is push with the traps. As you can see, I'm shooting them as well so that he can't shoot them out. If he shoots them out, it's a waste of a trap, and I've got to waste another 25 seconds for that trap to get back. So I shoot the trap to activate it so I can keep pushing with this gas trap push. As you can see here, I'm the one here that's been caustic gas trapped. I'm inside this room and I'm trapped. But what do? I push back with my own gas cans. Then I prioritize the caustic so that he's out the way. Then I keep pushing back with those gas cans to push the enemy back from healing the caustic. Then I separate the enemy again. Right here, I've got it all sorted, and I ended up having a bit of a weird moment here. I couldn't end up meleeing for some reason until the last moment. I got stuck on, it was hell. Somehow managed to survive, but it was a brilliant caustic trapped to caustic comeback. Tip number 15 is using traps to cover revives. Revives are always tricky. Like, lifeline shield is great. Sometimes you don't always have that, so you can either put up some gas cans as like a wall, or you can shoot the gas cans to act as like a smoke screen so that you can revive your teammates safely. Even if you're in the middle of a battle, a lot of people are going to avoid that smoke so that, like, they might not even know you're there because they're looking for enemies in other locations other than the big cloud of poisonous gas. And this also helps with gas trap looting. Say it's the beginning of a game and your teammates need loot. Quickly just fire off some of these gas cans so that you and your teammate can sort yourself out. Tip number 17 is holding the high ground. I see a lot of caustics that basically, when they're on the high ground, they won't really use their traps and stuff until people are already on them. Best thing to do is place like at least a triangle or a wall of caustic traps just on your high ground to control it. That way if people climb up, they're automatically forced off and you already have a pre-charged set of another 3 caustic traps instead of just putting 3 down and then you have to wait for it all to charge again. This is brilliant for like Pathfinders especially because they'll try to ambush you, and this is like caustics and anti-Pathfinder basically for high ground, especially with ziplines. Like, they put down a zipline, you can easily block it. You can actually block it to the point where people just smash into your gas can and they can't even get onto the high ground, they just fall straight down. It's brilliant for Pathfinders. But tip 19 is hide in loot. This is kind of a small one. I rarely do this, but if you do find a spare purple shield and you want to cover it up, make sure no one else finds it, you can. A lot of people just walk past. Now, tip number 20 is traps, ring, choke points. This is like a combination that works brilliant for like end circles. Like when the circle's coming in, you don't need to be super aggressive to take people down. Obviously, unless you want those damage points and everything like that, you can let the storm and the choke points do a lot of the work for you if you just be smart about it. You're forcing them into those choke points, doing a ton of damage, just with your abilities before your team have even had to put themselves at risk. Like right here, we've got a Pathfinder that was trying to be smart, but I've blocked him out. He's forced to go up, and it's delayed him so much that he can't even get in a circle, and again, he's screwed. Tip number 21 is Arc Star plus Trap combo. This is very efficient. If you've got someone on you, when you throw an Arc Star, a lot of times they'll run away before the Arc Star has time to go off. What you can do is throw a trap first, and the smoke from the trap will slow them down enough that the Arc Star you threw after will go off in time to hit them. It's a very tiny time scale delay that really helps. As you can see here with the smoke, that being able to see them, that like hollow, the infrared almost, that line that makes them proper stand out, really helps with aiming those Arc Stars, and you can get pretty much most of a team because they're slow movement as well. Now moving on to the main ultimate, you'll notice I've been using that a little bit in the past few clips, a lot more, but this again starts at 4 damage and increases +1 damage every tick, every second, up to 10. This takes 2 minutes to fully charge up, and it lasts for a total of 20 seconds. And I could break this down into a ton of different tips, but I won't. I'll just do some core tips. So like obviously right here, the main tip 22 is it's just brilliant for cover. You'll see in these few clips I use it in different styles. Like right there, I used it to do a heal. I stayed crouched, I stayed low, making myself look like maybe a knockdown enemy until they got close enough to see me, and then I really started jumping around. Right here, I've got a lifeline that doesn't really know what she's doing, so I throw down a Nox Grenade to cover my teammate that's just been down by a sniper, tell my lifeline to get in and use her shield to revive, and then I cover the sniper shooting him so that everyone's sorted and okay. As you can see here, in terms of fighting multiple squads, you can literally use the Nox Grenade cloud as almost like it's almost like a wall, an obstacle. You can, as you can see here, I'm going on the right, fighting, shooting, and then I use it as cover to go on the left, fighting, shooting, and you can almost use it as its own like wall, its own obstacle to hide behind. Tip number 23 is Trap and Grenade Barricade. This basically takes a lot of little tips, combines it, but this is probably one of the safest methods if you really need to sort yourself out quickly. But moving on to tip number 24 is cutting off enemy escape. If you feel like you've got the advantage on the enemies, don't be afraid to use your Nox Grenade, that kind of rhymed and put me off, to cut off their escape. Just throw it behind them, you can push them, and if they do try and run, they're just going to get damaged by your grenade. But tip number 25, pinning the enemy. Basically, on the same note, you can pin the enemy back. So the Caustic is like the brilliant anti-third party. He's the anti-Pathfinder. He's actually really good if you main him for a while and use a lot of his stuff efficiently. But you can pin back enemies, and again, this is almost like fighting, making sure you separate the enemies up. But you can just pin them back. Now, tip number 26 is stopping revives. A lot of times in Apex, you'll damage people like crazy, and they'll just heal up. They'll just keep on healing. If you down one, they'll revive them before you have time to get in there. So if you have any worries of that, use that insanely long distance throw that your ultimate has to just stop any revives going on so that you can get in there on time, because it's obviously they're not going to want to continue to revive inside a giant gas cloud. Tip number 27 is claim the high ground. His ultimate, that Nox cloud, is so wide and instantaneous high damaging that it's brilliant for claiming the high ground. If you manage to get it like accurately on top of something, no one's going to want to stay in that gas, and if you throw a few shurikens to help, they're obviously just going to run away. Tip number 28 is, from here we're going to do a few little minor tips after talking about its abilities, but basically certain finishers are better than others, and I prefer this triple punch finisher because it makes you move your character slightly more than the other finishers. So say you take this finisher, for example, he stands very still, so I just use the finishers that move the most. Tip number 29 is also the top tier legend for self-res. Out of all the legends I've seen so far, Mirage, some people think with his little minor invisibility, he's good, but I personally think Caustic is the best for self-res shields. The amount of time I've gone down in my gas clouds, and a self-res shield has just saved the day. Because a lot of times with self-res, you get finished. But with Caustic, he doesn't. If you're inside one of your gas clouds, usually they just leave you alone because they're trying to save their health and they run away. Like here, we've got a slightly different situation. I did go down, but I trapped them in with my gas and managed to finish them off with the poison and that self-res. I've survived the whole situation. Tip 30 is he's also a top tier legend for legendary armor. People don't really like the legendary armor because you have to do a finisher and that leaves you exposed. With Caustic, a lot of the time you're separating the enemies, as I went over multiple times, and this gives you plenty of time with your gas to sort yourself out and get that shield without worrying about getting shot while you're finishing. Which brings us on to our final top tier point, is tip 31, top tier legend for end circles. His end circle capabilities are brilliant, locking down houses, getting those buildings in the final circles, controlling the fights, and then when it comes down to the final circle, you've got that gas cloud just to completely annihilate anyone that comes into it. You've pretty much got the game set if you know what you're doing. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Other than that, I hope you did enjoy the video. Like, subscribe, you know, drill, notification. Adios.
Hi YouTube. Please leave a subscribe and drop a fat like.